This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Thursday, May 27th. Welcome to Africa 54. We continue to work remotely because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but what hasn't changed is our commitment to bringing you the latest and most important news from the African continent and around the world. This is today's Africa 54. We begin in northwestern Nigeria, where more than 150 people are missing and feared drowned on Wednesday after an overloaded boat ferrying passengers to a market sank in the Niger River, according to local officials. A local manager for the National Inland Waterways Authority said the boat was traveling between central Niger State and Wara in northwest Kebbi State when it went down. Another official had earlier said that some 140 people were missing after the Wednesday morning disaster. Boat tragedies are common on Nigerian waterways, mostly due to overcrowding, bad weather, and lack of maintenance. But Wednesday's toll would be one of the deadliest in recent accidents. 30 people drowned earlier this month when an overloaded boat capsized in Niger State. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, suspected Islamist militants killed at least 22 civilians with knives and machetes in an overnight raid on villages near the town of Beni, according to a local official. The attack comes more than 3 weeks after the government declared martial law in North Kivu and Ituri, two provinces bordering Uganda, in an attempt to stem worsening bloodshed. A 4-month-old baby was found alive on the back of one of the victims, one of the 7 children from the same family believed to have been orphaned in the latest violence that hit a number of villages around 40 kilometers east of Beni. Elsewhere, a group of men hacked graves in the earth to bury the victims as other villagers stood by and sang in mourning. More than 1,200 civilians have been killed in Beni territory since November 2019, according to the Kivu Security Tracker, when the army launched an operation aimed at ending the ADF's insurgency. In other Congo news, thousands of people fled the city of Goma any way they could on Thursday after officials said magma under the city could cause a second volcanic eruption and ordered parts of the city to evacuate. The city was nearly overrun by lava during an eruption on Saturday and has since been shaken by hundreds of earthquakes. More than 20,000 people are homeless and 40 still missing in the aftermath of Saturday evening's volcanic eruption that sent rivers of lava towards Goma, killing at least 31 people and destroyed more than 3,000 homes. The UN will, for the time being, relocate around 250 non-essential staff and around 1,500 of their dependents to the city of Bukavu, around 50 kilometers further south, according to Diego Zorrilla, UN Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator. The ash cloud caused the eruption has closed down airports in Goma and Bukavu and is likely to cause respiratory diseases, according to a statement by the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. More than 200 small and medium earthquakes have since caused cracks in buildings and streets in Goma, just 15 kilometers from Nyiragongo. People who fled their homes have lost valuable possessions, including motorcycles that were either consumed by the lava flow or looted. DRC government spokesman Patrick Muyaya told VOA in Kinshasa that efforts are underway to assist the affected residents of Goma.
You know, it's a natural catastrophe, a situation we didn't prevent, but the government, we have a budget, we have all our difficulties, but we have something always to face those kind of situations. That's why we start already, before to send a government delegation yesterday, we started to work with people there in Goma, with the local authority, to give them what they need first to start to intervene. And now we are making this huge evaluation, and then if we don't have enough funds, we're going to call Congolese people, we're going to mobilize them, and then we can see if we can mobilize international community to come closely with us to see the way they can bring some support to help us to solve those issues.
That was Patrick Muyaya, DRC government spokesman. French President Emmanuel Macron said he recognized his country's role in Rwanda's genocide and hoped for forgiveness at a memorial in Kigali on Thursday. He is seeking to reset relations after years of Rwandan accusations that France was complicit in the 1994 atrocities. He said, quote, "Only those who went through that night can perhaps forgive, and in doing so, give the gift of forgiveness." Macron said at the Gisozi Genocide Memorial in Kigali, where more than 250,000 victims are buried. The visit follows the release in March of a report by a French inquiry panel that said a colonial attitude had blinded French officials and the government bore a serious and overwhelming responsibility for not foreseeing the slaughter. However, the report observed France of direct complicity in the killings of more than 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus, a point Macron also made in his speech. Rwandan President Paul Kagame, who has previously said France participated in the genocide, said last week that the report meant a lot to Rwandans. On Friday, the IC Palace said Macron would name a new ambassador to Rwanda, the first accredited French envoy since 2015. More than 2,000 cases are being heard by panels set up across Nigeria to investigate allegations of police brutality. The investigations were a core demand of thousands of protesters in October 2020 who wanted a police unit called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad disbanded. They said it was responsible for extortion, torture, and extrajudicial killings. The police disbanded SARS but denied most accusations made against the unit. 6 months later, some campaigners and complainants say they are still waiting for justice. Timothy Obiezu has our report.
Two brothers in Ogbomoso, a neighboring city, are visiting the graveyard where their little brother Jimo Ishak was buried 7 months ago. Jimo, 22, was hit by a bullet they say was fired by the police to disperse protesters last October. He was the last born of the family and their parents' favorite.
You see that issue? There is nothing we can do since God allowed it to happen. Isaac was the closest to me.
Life has been tough here for the families since the incident. Local police authorities deny that their bullet killed Ishak and wouldn't comment on this report. All they have left is this picture of him.
I love this picture so much, and I'd like to remake it. There's no time that I wake up that I do not think of Isaac.
The family also alleges that the police had pressured them to discontinue the case, but human rights lawyer Hussein Afolabi is helping them seek justice.
When Jimo's parents, I was trying to make sense of the whole thing, trying to get as much facts from them as possible and all of that. Then we started hearing the police firing gunshots.
In October, the world's attention was on Nigeria as protests to end police brutality swept through many cities for 2 weeks. The protests were led by the country's younger citizens who said they were simply tired of being profiled by operatives of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, or SARS. After many days of sustained outcries, a major victory was announced.
The Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigerian Police, otherwise known as SARS, is hereby dissolved across all formations.
But protester demands soon expanded to include calls for better governance, fight against corrupt government systems, and more political involvement. Experts warned that expanding protest demands could be dangerous and that bad governance can only be addressed on the ballot. But the protesters pressed on. Then, this happened. Amnesty International says at least 12 protesters were killed at the Lekki toll gate when Nigerian forces opened fire. But authorities deny the killing and say officers fired blanks into the air. However, the shooting triggered global criticisms. Back home, angry protesters burned the city. President Muhammadu Buhari addressed the nation and promised to fulfill protester demands. Critics, however, say many months later, not much has been done. Instead, protesters say they have been targeted and punished. Due to the crackdown, Some have gone into hiding, fled the country, or just wouldn't talk about this topic anymore. But some are brave enough to speak.
Police brutality may have sparked the protest, but bad governance is the fundamental reason why young Nigerians actually went out on the street.
Reno Odwala was a popular face during the protests. But experts say she and other protest leaders failed to provide a negotiating front with authorities.
In some of these social and political conflicts, at critical moments, you need to be able to negotiate outcomes.
Amnesty International has profiled 82 cases of abuse by SARS since 2017. They say there's more and the road to justice is bumpy.
There remains a thick mist of fear about the possibility of this process delivering justice.
But until then, leaders of the movement say a race has just begun. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Lagos, Nigeria.
In the first game of the Basketball Africa League's quarterfinals, Egypt's Zamalek triumphed Cameroon's forces amazed at police basketball with 82-53 victory. In a much closer game, Angola Petroleos de Luanda came out on top against Morocco's Asale in a 79-72 win. Jackson Bungani has the highlights.
In the first quarter, Zamalek's Walter Wallace Hodge got a pass to Mustafa El Mekawi, who scored in the paint. Forces Armée et Police Marcus Wiley Thomas Jr. missed the net, but teammate Matthew Rassam Hezekiah got the rebound and scored. Zamalek got ahead as Walter Wallace Hodge made another pass, this time to Islam Salem Mohammed, who hit a three. Mustafa Mohamed El Makawi attempted to score but was blocked by Cameroon's Matthew Ransom Hezekiah. Forces Armée et Police Amadou Abdoulaye Haruna made a basket and got fouled on the play. Down by 7 with a minute to go in the first, Zamalek's Walter Hodge got 2 points in. Halfway through the second quarter, Zamalek's Omar Hussein made a pass to Ahmed Hatem Abdelatif, who tried for a three-pointer but missed. Luckily, teammate Chinemelu Elonu was at the basket and dropped it in. Forces Armée et Police was up by 5 when Egypt's Moloku Sulaiman Diabate passed to Chinemelu Elonu for an easy 2. Down by 1 with a minute left in the half, Cameroon's Marcus Wiley Thomas Jr. scored and gave his team the lead. But Zamalek got the lead back as Walter Wallace Hodge passed to Mohab Yasser Abdelatif, who passed to Mustafa Mohamed El Makawi for 2 points. All in the second half, Egypt's Islam Salem Mohamed found a Walter Hodge Jr. for 2. They kept the lead going with Chinemelu's pass to Walter Hodge for another 2. Hodge came running down the court and got the ball into the hands of Islam Salem Mohamed, who scored. And halfway through the third, Mohamed Kenan Tans made 2 as Cameroon trailed by 10. Zamalek extended their lead with 8 minutes left in the game as Moloku Sulaiman Diabate passed to Pokwade for a 3. Diabate followed with his own 3-point shot. Zamalek's lead extended to 22 points, while Cameroon's Etienne Temetong Toko passed to Bakanzo Akomenzo for 2. With 2 minutes left, Forces Armée et Police Cedric Tango Kamfa came back to the court and scored. His teammate Arnold Okola Kome made 2. Cedric Kamfa also went to the paint, scored, and got fouled. But Zamalek's big lead closed out the game with Ahmed Yassaro's pass to Mohab Yasser Abdelatif for 2. Petro de Luanda ended strong but started out strong too with Gershon Goncalves' long pass to Carlos Morales, who got into the paint and scored. With less than a minute to go in the first quarter, Morocco's Yassin El Mashni found Zakaria El Masbahi, who hit a 3. Up by 8, Goncalves shot a 3-pointer, extending Petro's lead. Goncalves didn't stop there. After a steal, he passed the ball across the court to Lionel Paulo, who made an easy 2 with no AS Sal player in sight. With 3 minutes left in the half, Petro's Antoine Scott found Olimpio Cipriano for a successful 3-pointer shot. Morocco's Yassin El Marsini went to the rim and missed, but got his own rebound and scored. With only a 3-point lead, Angola's Goncalves passed to Moraes, who extended that lead to 6. A steal by Angola's Velodacio Joaquim is converted in 2 points with a pass to Goncalves. ASL tried to put a stop to Petro with Soufiane Kordu's pass to Terrell Devon Stoglin, who found Abdrahim Najjar for 2, cutting Petro's lead to 1. Morocco then got the lead with Malsbahi's steal and pass to Rashad Dian James, who scored 2, making the score 55-53. With ASL up 3 with 8 minutes left in the game, Petro's Ryan Richards made a basket, cutting the lead to 1. Paulo got the lead back for Petro with 2 points at the rim. But Morocco's Marcini got the ball into the hands of Abderrahim Najjar, who scored and was fouled on the play, getting ASL back into it. Petro's Goncalves was able to hit a crucial 3 while down by 2 with 5 minutes left in the game. A pass to John Pedro became a dunk by the Petro player, pushing their lead to 3. But it was a pass to Scott from Moraes for a 3 that widened Angola's lead with under 4 minutes to go. Goncalves found Richards for a dunk that turned into an 8-point difference in score, eventually winning by 7.
With these wins, Zamalek and Petro de Luanda advanced to the semi-finals, while forces Amis at Police, Basketball, and Asale head home. Stay with us for all the highlights throughout the tournament here on Africa 54. You can hear the games live on these local VOA FM stations or at voanews.com. We'll be right back.
All this week on Africa 54, we are partnering with the BAL to bring you the best of African basketball. Don't miss it. Yeah.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Kenya's Department of Gender says reported cases of gender-based violence have nearly quintupled during the COVID-19 pandemic, but campaigners note the stigma and fear of reporting abuse means the number of cases that go unreported is many times higher. Victoria Munga reports from Nairobi.
Kenyan Jacqueline Karemi recalls the day in April when her partner of nearly a decade suddenly accused her of having an affair and then attacked her.
We wrestled. He was trying to strangle me and pull me back to the bedroom so that he could lock the door. But I managed to get out of the room. He wanted to push me off the 5th floor. I hit him. Then he started slashing my face and head with the Maasai sword.
Karemi's was among more than 5,000 reported cases of gender-based violence in Kenya as emotional and work stress mounted during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's nearly 5 times the number of reported cases in 2019, according to an April survey by Kenya's Department of Gender. But Kenya's women rights campaigners note the vast majority of cases go unreported.
Reporting will either cause shame. I'll fight with my parents. Another thing could be that nobody will believe me because this person is a reputable, could be a chief, could be anybody. So this person is reputable in this area. So a lot of trust has been lacked, especially with the reporting system, because people really, most of the victims believe they are not going to be heard.
To encourage gender-based violence survivors to speak out, Kenya's women rights defenders hold open forums.
The reason why we're having this fellowship is to try to bring more women human rights defenders and activists and feminists that are able to talk against any form of violence against women and girls and any form of violence when it comes to human rights violation.
Kenyan authorities are running a campaign called Komesha Dhulma, meaning Stop Violence in Swahili. The goal is to stir the public to report cases of gender-based violence.
For us to achieve, even to start talking about it, to make it open, for people to come out, for women to come out, we have to have a holistic approach on how do we indeed deal with gender-based violence? Dealing with it is not taking people to court alone or fighting it the way we want to fight it. We have to go back even with the church, because all of these people are people who go to church, some of them who go to the mosque.
As COVID-19 continues to batter families, gender-based violence survivors like Karemi can only hope more people speak out against what many now call a pandemic within a pandemic. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Nairobi.
President Joe Biden called on Wednesday for the withdrawal of Eritrean and Amhara forces from Ethiopia's Tigray region. He said immediate humanitarian access must be granted to avoid widespread famine in the conflict-torn area. Thousands have been killed and about 2 million people forced from their homes in Tigray after conflict erupted between the Tigray People's Liberation Front and the Ethiopian military last November. The president said Ethiopia and Eritrean forces must allow immediate, unimpeded humanitarian access to the region in order to prevent widespread famine. Antony Blinken has wrapped up his first visit as U.S. Secretary of State to the Middle East, where he aimed to shore up the Gaza ceasefire. He also sought to cement relationships and ensure the delivery of aid after a violent flare-up between Israel and Hamas that killed more than 250 people, most of them Palestinians. Iris Makla reports from Jerusalem.
Antony Blinken's first trip to the Middle East as Secretary of State came just days after a fragile ceasefire in Gaza, where an Israeli offensive in response to deadly Hamas rocket attacks left scores dead and buildings in rubble. The focus of Blinken's talks this week with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, how the US can shore up the Egypt-brokered ceasefire and help rebuild Gaza.
We know that to prevent a return to violence, we have to use the space created to address a larger set of underlying issues and challenges. And that begins with tackling the grave humanitarian situation in Gaza and starting to rebuild.
The US commitment to rehabilitate Gaza raises the question of how to get aid into civilians without it going to Hamas, the US-designated terror group that controls the Palestinian territory.
We'll work with our partners closely with all to ensure that Hamas does not benefit from the reconstruction assistance.
US officials suggest involving the United Nations and the Palestinian Authority to circumvent Hamas. Some Israeli observers are skeptical.
I don't see the mechanism that would allow America to go around Hamas or over their heads via the Palestinian Authority.
Pincus says that before the latest hostilities, Qatar was sending $30 million a month in cash into Gaza via an Israeli border crossing. Israeli defense officials are calling for that to end.
This has been the recommendation of the military, of the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, to the Prime Minister for some time, to cut the direct link that the Qataris have with Hamas in terms of providing them the money, and to make them stop and go through some kind of a filtering process.
During his trip, Blinken said he would request $75 million from Congress for economic assistance to the Palestinian people. The Palestinian Authority greeted this pledge as a welcome start at rebuilding relations. These reached a historic low under the Trump administration, which moved the US Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem and cut funding to UN agencies supporting Palestinians. On the Israeli side, the latest hostilities in Gaza are prompting a reassessment of Israel's policy towards Hamas.
Israel's policy in the last few years was to weaken the Palestinian Authority, to divide and rule the Palestinians between the West Bank and Gaza, and indirectly strengthen or at least maintain Hamas's power in order to prevent any meaningful peace process. I'm not saying that one could have been held, but at least to prevent it from ever happening.
As the US tries to reset relations with the Palestinian leadership, Secretary Blinken continues his efforts to turn a shaky Gaza ceasefire into a more stable truce. Iris Makler for VOA News, Jerusalem.
A new algorithm tool is helping social workers better detect kids who are in high-risk child abuse situations. Dina Mitchell reports.
For caseworkers answering hotline calls, how a child abuse allegation is handled can mean the difference between life and death. Receiving around 16,000 hotline calls each year, Allegheny County's Office of Children, Youth, and Families in Pennsylvania has a monumental task. In the past, caseworkers relied only on their training and gut instinct to prioritize investigations. Now, an algorithm is lending a hand and making a difference.
So, yeah, we could never, ever go back to where we were, quite frankly, and feel comfortable that our gut and our clinical judgment would suffice.
Algorithms are already used to determine the online advertisements people see, rate creditworthiness for a loan, and screen applicants for some jobs. Computer programs can compile and analyze data more quickly than humans and are not prone to human biases, even though some people see the potential for algorithmic bias.
It's more than 7 million children who are reported for abuse or neglect each year. This kind of effort is really just helping frontline screeners and staff use data to make better decisions.
When a call comes in, the child's name is entered into a database, as well as that of the parent or an alleged abuser.
The Allegheny Family Screening Tool goes into the integrated data warehouse and pulls up all the structured information that's known about this family and summarizes it in a simple score. And that score is really a sort of future risk of harm score. So the call screener still has to make the decision based on what's in the current allegation.
The score ranges from 1, low risk, to 20, high risk. Noelle says sometimes the tool surprises them.
Sometimes it confirms what our hunch is or what our clinical judgment is. And sometimes we scratch our heads and say, wow, what is it that we're not seeing?
The team says it has always been aware of the possibility of inherent bias in the tool, noting that law enforcement and social services databases are often filled disproportionately with people of color and the poor. But a study published in 2019 by Stanford University showed that so far, the algorithm has resulted in less racial bias in deciding when to pursue possible cases of child abuse compared to human analysis alone.
These algorithms aren't crystal balls, but as I said, I do think that they're a really important adaptation to how we use data.
Dina Mitchell for VOA News.
From all of us here in Washington, we thank you for watching.